I did every diet you could possibly think of, and it would all come back. She said that to me sitting across from me on Zoom, and she was not upset when she said it. That's the part I want you to hear. Like, she wasn't crying. She said it the way like you would read a weather report, totally flat, because she already said it out loud to like 4 other people before she sat across from me. And none of them had actually done anything about it. You know, she had that folder with her lab results going back 6 years. It was like this thick, and she had sent me file after file after file to like review. She had seen 3 specialists. She had a supplement shelf filled with supplements. She was biking more miles than like she had on her car. And every single provider had told her the same sentence: everything looks fine. Welcome to the True Wellness Podcast with Dr. Z, where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. Z, and each week I will bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Now, let's get started. So here's the question this whole episode is about. Not what should she try next, because she's tried everything. The real question is, why did none of it actually work? Because there is an answer, and it's not discipline, and it's not that her body's malfunctioning. So if you're listening to this, you have your own version of that folder. And here's what we're going to do in the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to walk you through 5 things that she tried: diets, exercise, testing, supplements, and finally, her own research at 11 o'clock at night because nobody else would. So 5 things in order. And with each one, I'm going to tell you the thing nobody told her, what that attempt actually proved. Because here's what I've come to after, doing this work for nearly 20 years now. When someone tries 5 different things and all 5 things fail, that's not 5 failures, really. It's 5 results. And she ran 5 experiments on herself, and every one of them came back with usable data. Not one person in her life read the data back to her. And there's one more thing. All 5 of those attempts have something in common. One thing was true of every single one of them, and it's the reason that all 5 ended the same way. She didn't see it really for 10 years, and I didn't see it for the first hour that I sat with her. And I'll show you where it all ended up. But it won't mean anything to you until we've walked through all 5 of them. So let's start where she started. So by the end of this segment, I think you'll see what she saw, which is that she was never missing any of the effort. So let's start with number 1, diets. I did every diet you could possibly think of. Oh my God, I hear that all the time. Let me tell you what every diet actually meant for her, though, because it's more specific than people assume. It was not like one bad month. It was a decade of different diet protocols. In each one, she entered it very seriously. She didn't cheat her way through them. She was the person who read the book, cleaned out the pantry, told her family what was happening, and ran it clean for 8, 10, 12 weeks. And she has photos from the good stretch of every single one of those. And then it would all come back. And here's what I want to say about that phrase, because it's the most important 4 words in this segment, or actually it's the most important 3 words in this segment. It came back. Not I gained it back, not I quit, not it came back like a tide, like something with its own momentum that she was standing in front of. No, That's not the language of someone who lacked discipline. Someone who lacked discipline says, I fell off. She never said that. She said it came back. She was describing something that was happening to her. What the diet years actually proved, well, let's read the data from what happened, right? She ran roughly a dozen dietary interventions over the decade, right? She went on and off all these different things, different macros, different timing, different food lists. Some of them, they contradicted each other, right? Completely. One told her to eat more of what the last program told her to ban, and every single one produced the same shape of result. Something moved, then it stopped, and then it reversed. Same outcome from wildly different inputs. Think about what that means. When you change the input 12 different ways and the output over here doesn't change, well, the problem isn't the input. That's not a motivational line, right? That's just how you read an experiment. 12 protocols, 12 reversals. She didn't prove she can't stick to a diet. She proved that the thing driving this sits upstream from what's actually on her plate, which is enormous information. And nobody handed it to her. Every time one program or diet ended, she got a version of, well, maybe just try being more consistent. And she added another failure to the pile instead of an actual result. And she left those years of dieting believing that she was the problem. And she would have left them knowing food alone wasn't the lever. That's what she should have taken away from it. So she did what anybody would do next. And if it's not what's going in, okay, it must be what's going out. Now the exercise, okay? And she said, I was literally biking 100 miles a week. 100 miles in a week. I want you to sit with that, because I think when people hear she tried exercise, they picture a gym membership that got used in January and then stopped. And, that's not what this is. That's a training volume. That's someone getting up before the sun in bad weather on a schedule for months while always working and running a household, right? That's what she was doing. And after all of that, she went back to her provider and she was told essentially that you just need to be more active, which is when she said the line that I think about constantly. She's like, really? How much more exercise do you want me to do? And, she wasn't being sarcastic. She genuinely wanted the number. She was ready to do it. And that's the part that gets me. She heard do more. And her first instinct wasn't to argue. It was to ask, okay, how much? So she could go and she could do it. I mean, and that's the kind of woman that I'm talking about here. This is not a person who has a compliance program. What the exercise years actually proved, here's what 100 miles a week brought her. And it's worth more again than what she was told. Sustained high volume physical output over months is one of the cleanest tests that there is. So she demonstrated the capacity to execute. She demonstrated that she'd show up. She demonstrated that, the output side of the equation, the effort side, it could be pushed to a level that honestly most people never touch. And the needle still didn't move the way that it should have. So there's a second thing in there to look at, right? And the second thing for years, when you look at these things for years, you could really start to appreciate them, because she wasn't only tired at the end of it. She was tired at a level that didn't match the work she was doing. She'd rest and it wouldn't clear. She'd still be tired. And that mismatch is itself, it's a finding, because recovery that doesn't track with effort, it's information. It's information about what's happening underneath, not a sign that she needed to try harder. So diets ruled out the input, 100 miles a week, ruled out the output. So she had now personally eliminated the two things that every single person had told her were the answer. And what did she get for it? Everything looks fine. Which brings us to that big folder. She's like, okay, there's got to be something. So countless specialists, no answer. She ran every test. She kept every result, 6 years of them, in a folder that she carried around to all her different appointments, because she learned that nobody would have the previous one. Okay. And she could quote from memory the sentence, and so can you probably, because you probably heard it if you're listening to this, but everything's fine. Yep, that's what she heard over and over again. And I mean, I want to be careful here, because I'm not going to stand here and tell you her doctors were bad at their jobs. That's probably not the case. I'm sure most of them weren't. The tests they ran, what happened was those tests would come back in range, and they reported honestly. That's what they were asked to do. But here's what that sentence, everything's fine, does to a person, right? And I don't think anyone saying this really understands, because she walks in with a body that's not working, and she walks out being told, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. And then there's really only two ways to reconcile it. Either the testing didn't find it, or she's making it up. And when you're the only one in the room holding the position that there's something wrong, you start to quietly move to position two, like, okay, maybe it's just all in my head. And this is where the real damage of those 6 years comes from. It wasn't all the copays that she invested. It was that she stopped trusting her own read on her own body. She'd get a symptom, and then before she'd even finish noticing it, she'd be like talking herself out of it. Like, oh, it doesn't really exist, or it's normal, or it's aging. So what did those years and years and years of lab testing actually prove? Let's read the data, right? Because it's the most unread result of the 5 things that we're talking about here. Because everything's fine is not the same sentence as nothing is wrong. It means the specific thing that we measured were inside the reference ranges that we compared them to. That's a real result. It's just a much narrower one than it sounds when you're actually, what you're hearing going on in the room. And here's the place that matters for her. For those 6 years, like, it didn't come back empty. They came back with a genuinely valuable finding, which is that whatever's driving the way that she was feeling, driving her weight, what have you, this is not the thing that standardized screening is actually designed to catch. Because she systematically cleared the most common explanations. And that's real. Honestly, I mean, most people, they never get that far. Every specialist was answering the question that they were handed, okay? Nobody was assigned the question she was actually asking, which is why? Why is this happening to me? A question that doesn't belong to any one specialty, which is exactly what kept falling in between them. 6 years, no answer. And now she also doesn't trust herself. So she went looking for someone who would do just that. Enter in all the supplements, the alternative care, and all of that. And she said, well, supplements worked for a period of time, and then they don't anymore. And she has this shelf, right? Everyone who's been through this has the shelf. And notice, she didn't say they never worked. She said the opposite. She said they worked and then they stopped. And that pattern repeated enough times that she could describe it like as a rule. And that's actually the most interesting sentence anyone has told me this month, right? Because think about what the ordinary response means. If nothing had ever worked, that's one story. But something moved, like, repeatedly, which tells you that the system is capable of responding. It's not inert. So it's not just her age. It's not permanent damage that can't shift. But then it stopped repeatedly, which tells you something kept pulling it back to the same place. These two facts together are worth more than everything the 6 years of testing gave her, right? Because she has a system that responds and then it gets overridden. That's not a supplement problem. That's a sign that something upstream is still running, and each supplement was quietly compensating for it until it couldn't compensate for it anymore. So she had, without knowing it, proven that there's a driver, that there is still something that's active. And what she got told instead was to try a different brand, try a higher dose, or try a new protocol from a new practitioner who had never seen that folder stacked and all sorts of stuff. So she'd get like 8 good weeks, and then the tide would come back and she'd add one more bottle to the shelf, one more failure to her own record. And at one point in that cycle, she stopped asking other people. And that's where we come from. Now she just starts doing her own research, right? And this is the one that breaks my heart, you guys. She said, I went down a ton of rabbit holes. 11 o'clock at night, everyone was asleep, 20 labs open in front of me, forums, studies. She didn't have the background to fully evaluate, right? A protocol from a stranger who described symptoms that sounded like hers, something on the scroll and Instagram. And she wasn't doing this for fun. She was doing the job that nobody else would do. And she had become her own researcher, her own case manager, her own advocate without training, at midnight after a full day. And she said this, I just needed someone to believe that I had something going on. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not a protocol, not a supplement, not a new diet. After a decade of 12 diets, 100 miles a week, 6 years of specialists, a shelf full of bottles, what she named as the actual missing thing was someone who believed her. And I want to say this clearly, because that rabbit hole pattern, what it demonstrates is, she thought that she was going crazy. And it made her the only person in the entire process who actually started to treat this as a solvable problem. Everybody else was like closing the case. There's nothing wrong. The diet, well, you better stick with it. Everything's fine is what the doctor said. The supplement guy said, oh, try this other one. She was the only person standing in the position that there is a reason that this is caused, not random. And that cause can be found. And she was right. That's the finding. She'd been right the whole time. You see, she just didn't have the tools to find it alone at 11 o'clock at night. And I mean, she shouldn't have to, right? She didn't have that background. She didn't have the experience, but she held out that hope. So let's lay out the 5 results, because now they add up to something. Number 1, the diets proved that it wasn't food alone. Number 2, the exercise proved it wasn't effort. Number 3, the testing proved that it wasn't what standard screening was looking for. Number 4, the supplements proved that her body, her system was still responding, except there was something that was still overriding it. And number 5, and the rabbit hole proved that, she's been right all the time, that there is something going on with her. Now, that's not the profile of someone who failed. That is the profile of someone who has systematically eliminated almost every common explanation there is. And most people honestly never rule out one of those. And she ruled out literally 5, which means when you say, I tried everything, right? I believe you completely. And I also want to say that the other half of the sentence, the half that is nobody has said to you, you've tried everything that was offered to you. And every single one of those things had something in common. Go back to those 5 things one more time. But this time, don't look at what she tried. Look at who was leading. The diet was led by a book written by someone who'd never met her. The exercise was led by the provider's instruction. More, do more, right? The testing was led by this reference range, a set of numbers that were built from a population of average people, not from her. The supplements, they were led by a label or a practitioner who had never seen the folder. And the rabbit holes at 11 p.m. were led by a stranger on a forum who happened to describe symptoms that sounded like hers. 5 attempts, 10 years. And in every single one of those, the thing that was giving the orders was outside of her body. She handed 5 maps and she was told to follow them, and she did. And when those maps didn't lead anywhere, everyone concluded that the problem was how she was walking. Not one person in a decade asked the body itself what was going on. Not a person. Now go back to what she said. The thing she named that was actually the missing piece. I just needed someone to believe I had stuff going on. Her body had been talking the entire time. The fatigue that didn't clear with the rest, the 8 good weeks that always ended and the weight came back, right? That was all information. It was consistent. It was repeating. It had a pattern in it. And it was the most reliable data set in that whole entire folder. And it was the thing that nobody read because it didn't come from a lab. It came from her. That's what the body-led method is. It's in the name. It doesn't hand you a 6th map. It starts coming from the only source that's been there for the whole 10 years, that has never once been wrong about the fact that something's going on. And it reads what you've already lived as evidence. What it exactly is. You've spent a decade being asked to lead your body. Nobody's ever asked your body to lead. So if you have to take away one thing from this conversation today, right? I want you to understand that you're not missing more discipline. You've probably demonstrated more discipline than almost anyone I've worked with, especially if you're sitting here and listening to this today, right? But you're missing one piece that nobody identified. And it's not hiding in a protocol that you haven't found. It's actually in the signals that your body has been giving you the whole time. Except we're taught to talk ourselves out of those signals. Hello, right? Now, I'm not going to send you anywhere. There's nothing to sign up for at the end of this, but I want to ask one thing of you, right? And it's the only thing I'm going to ask. Tell me your version, right? Put it in the comment section. Not the whole 10 years, but like one line. The sentence you've said to a provider that got waved off. The thing that came back. The number on a piece of paper that wasn't inside a range where you were sitting there barely functioning. Leave it in the comments. You don't have to use your name or anything. And here's why I'm asking. It's not a formality. Those 5 things I walked through today, I didn't get that list from a textbook. I got it because women told me one at a time. Diets, exercise, testing, supplements, 11 p.m. That list exists because enough people have said those 5 things outlined and a pattern showed up. So when I say leave your line down there, I mean it the way she meant it, right? Like somebody should be reading these. I read them, and I'll tell the other thing that happens when they're public. The next woman scrolls down and she reads yours, and she finds out for the first time in 10 years that she's not the only one. And that's more than anything that I've said today. So the ones I hear most often are the ones that turn into the next episode. So make sure that you leave your comments. That's all I've got for today. If any of you, the 5 was you, I tell you, go back and listen to the segment one more time. Not for the advice. There wasn't any. But just to hear somebody say out loud that it wasn't your fault. I'll see you next week. This is Dr. Z. This is Dr. Z reminding you to tune into your body, connect with what matters, and embrace your journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you for the next episode.